Good evening, Blue Jays fans. Welcome to Jaybird Watching. We're pretty much all back. 3 of the 4 people are here for the first time in almost a month. So it's nice to get the gang back together as always. As we currently sit, Adam and Craig, who are joining me tonight as my co-hosts, we are 2 days away from the beginning of September, and the Blue Jays sit at 69 and 58 with a 2-game lead over the Baltimore Orioles for the final playoff spot. Blue Jays find themselves half a game back of wild card number 2 and a game back of wild card number 1, which would guarantee them playoff or home playoff games in the wild card round. As we dive into it tonight, we'll go through the Red Sox series, which saw a whole bunch of highs. And my goodness, is it ever fun to beat up on the Boston Red Sox, Adam, especially as somebody who is now commuting into Boston. I'm sure that was nice. And then we'll also talk about the lows that were the Angels series and how they kind of came out of nowhere, caught the Blue Jays flat-footed and swept the Blue Jays. And of course, we'll talk about last night's game, which had me turn it off. And luckily they came back and won the game. But before we dive into that, Adam, Craig, how are you guys doing? It's been a while.
Oh, I'm doing well, man. Last week, Craig and I had an interesting conversation, and I just want to put it out there that it seems like a lot of people thought that I wasn't in on this team. Just want to let you know.
But they did exactly what you said was going to happen.
Yeah, I was worried about them losing the Angels series, and they did. That being said, these are the things I worry about. Do I think that they can bounce back? Of course, I think that. I hope that. And they are in a playoff spot as we currently stand, Brendan, as you said. But I'd be lying if I said I was optimistic, despite sweeping Boston and despite beating the Cubs last night. But that's how I'm doing. Craig, how are you?
Oh, I'm having a wonderful time. I actually stayed up and watched the game last night, and it was finally rewarding after all the pummelings we took over the last few days and whatnot. So, yeah, it's interesting where we're at right now is about the best thing I can say. I think the title of roller coaster ride from hell is going pretty good for this name of this episode.
Yes.
Yes. No, that is probably quite accurate. So look, it's been a while since I've been on the show. I'll be perfectly transparent. I think the last time we recorded with me on it was either the 9th or the 2nd of August, so about a month ago. And as I told Craig before we started recording and before you hopped on, Adam, after the Blue Jays coughed up, I think it was the Tuesday game against the Orioles when they were losing, got the lead back, and then proceeded to cough it up again. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm not watching Wednesday. It ended up getting rained out. And then because it was my wife's 30th birthday, I didn't really pay much attention to the Guardians series where they lost 2 out of 3 in that one and struggled to score runs. And then that led into a work retreat for me. So that was pretty much out of commission. So basically 2 weeks off of Blue Jays baseball. But of course, whether it's through our Jaybird Watching podcast group that we have or just checking Twitter, as I would always do if I can't watch a game and checking in on the score. I want to ask you guys this because you've obviously been a little bit closer than I have the last month or maybe more so 2 weeks since I've barely been watching. Is there a more, and Craig, we can start with you on this one, and then Adam, turn it over to you because I think I saw some of what you were saying last week. But Craig, is there a more frustrating team in baseball to watch right now than the Toronto Blue Jays? And I mean, you can eliminate. I know the Angels just came here and swept, but they're out of it.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, the Cubs are out of it. The Pirates, who the Blue Jays play this weekend, are out of it. So there's no real point in getting frustrated. I mean, maybe the Chicago White Sox, considering the expectations and how similar they are to the Blue Jays, but at least the Blue Jays are in a playoff spot. But it doesn't feel like that so often. It does not feel like this team is pretty decently, I wouldn't say comfortable, but nicely in a playoff spot right now. Is there a more frustrating team in baseball to watch than this team because of the violent swings they go through where they're world beaters and then they can't hit a thing?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a night and day thing like you were hitting on there. And it's amazing to me that with the amount of talent that's on this team that they haven't found a way to put it all together for an extended amount of time. And they've even been saying that in the interviews and whatnot over the last few weeks. They have the urgency, they get all that, but they know the problem. It's they can't find a way to coalesce and get all this stuff down together. It's just kind of how it nuts. And as fans, it is completely maddening because you see them look like they're going to team that's going to completely take it to the Yankees, destroy the Red Sox for a whole sweep, lose 3 games straight to the freaking Angels, and then barely hold on against the Cubs last night. And it's just maddening is the proper word, I think. But to that point, something's got to give, and it's just wondering if this is finally the calm before the storm. We know this team can play better. I don't think this is the ceiling at all. I think this is still the bottom. But how do they finally just take this thing? They have it, run with it. I don't know what's going to be that tipping point right now, but they're running out of damn time. And to your point, safe-ish is about the best way I can categorize it.
Yeah, I agree. Adam, so last week, from what I think I saw, you said in the group chat that don't believe in what they just did to the Yankees and the tail end of the Orioles series. Do you feel a little vindicated based on the sweep against the Angels this past weekend, or how are you feeling considering they did end up sweeping the Red Sox?
I don't think sweeping the Red Sox is any grand feat. My opinion, just like you said about, you were going to ask, or you did ask if there's any more frustrating team right now, and I was going to say Anaheim because they look like they have they look like they have all the talent in the world, and on paper they do. They probably have the 2 best players in baseball over the past, I don't know, at least over the past 5 years, at the very least.
Yeah.
And they're not winning ball games. They're not in a playoff position. That being said, I think that if you can sweep the Boston Red Sox, you should be taking at least 1 out of the Angels. And I know that game with Manoah and Ohtani was close. It was a very fun to watch, but at the same time, you got to capitalize on these games. And I guess when I sort of dig into the Jays about my frustrations and whatnot, it's not so much regular season frustrations. Like I believe they can get there, but performances like this give me no sense of optimism for how they're going to perform in the playoffs.
Yeah.
If you can't
don't
capitalize,
think they're going to have to rely on Danny Jansen for a 4 RBI night
for a
every
home
night?
run. Yeah. I would hope not. And if you can't capitalize, especially with where you are in the wild card, like if I'm not mistaken, the Orioles are 2 behind right now. That's nothing. That's not, and you face them I think it's 10 more times.
Yeah.
You face Baltimore. That is nothing. So you got to take advantage of these matchups. I know they beat the Cubs, but you still have to capitalize tonight against them. We're recording this on Tuesday night. You have to win these games. You have to.
Yes.
And if you don't, I'm sorry, dude. You're shooting yourself in the foot. I can't blame injuries on this. I can't.
No. Not when all the other teams in the American League East are having that same problem. Look at the Yankees.
Exactly.
Their bullpen's decimated.
Yeah. And Frankie Montas has been terrible since they've acquired it. It's almost like I think a couple of us predicted that when the trade deadline was coming around.
Yeah, there was a few people that were floating that idea around too, that he's actually in decline already, and his stats actually reflect that.
Oh yeah.
So, but no, throw a brick of prospects, Yankees fans, to that fire if you want. I'm fine with that.
Yeah. I think the last time I was on and we were looking ahead at the schedule, the soft part started with that Red Sox series, and it got off to such a promising beginning by sweeping them. And then obviously it came back down to reality really, really quickly and in panic mode again by getting swept to the Angels. They're still in this soft part of the schedule where you are playing the Cubs tonight after beating them last night. So with Kevin Gausman on the mound against former Blue Jay Marcus Stroman, and we'll talk about him in a little bit, you need to beat him, especially because Marcus Stroman has been pitching I want to say the 2016 and 2018 version where he got hit around quite a bit. It has not been a good year for him. And then this weekend, you go to lowly Pittsburgh, and then, Adam, as you mentioned, the first of, let's see, there's 10 games left against Baltimore. You have 2 against them, a doubleheader on Labor Day, and then 3 against the Texas Rangers before it really tightens up between now and
speaking of games you damn well better win.
I know. So look, there's still a lot of time to salvage the Angels series, but realistically, when you look ahead, to make up what you just gave up against the Angels, sweep the Cubs. You absolutely have to. and then you have to go out there and at least take 2 out of 3 against the Pirates, and then maybe we can put the Angel sweep behind us a little bit before going into Baltimore. But you can't do that with this team because they are so hot and cold. I've never seen a team that can look so good like they did against the Yankees and the Red Sox, and then look as bad as they did against the Angels, where they were lucky to score 3 runs. So when you start looking ahead and you see that Baltimore is only 2 games behind, and the fact that you're at Baltimore 7 times of those 10 games that you still play them, including the last 3 games of the regular season, which could be
Brutal.
absolutely terrifying at Camden Yards, where
Mhm.
if Baltimore's within striking distance, they're selling that place out with
Yeah.
easily. So, Adam, how concerned currently are you that, you know what, you might be able to tread water and get through this stretch okay, but once you start getting into Baltimore and Tampa and the Yankees again and the Phillies and some really tough teams, is Baltimore going to keep this gap as close as they have so far?
I have no reason to think that they won't. And how fucking wild is that? Just the Orioles that are the thorn in our side right now.
I know.
It
Oh
is.
my God.
I could not have called that in the beginning of the season. I think we
No.
all wrote off the Orioles, and they become a
To that
legitimate
point,
threat.
To that point, I think you need freaking Doc Brown's freaking time machine to know and
Yeah.
go back and put some money on the O's instead of the Cubbies.
Yeah. Look, when it comes to the Orioles, don't get me wrong. I know we've ragged on them, but they're an exciting up and coming team. They're going to be pretty good.
Yes.
And they already are pretty good, right? This is, it's probably if we had a full season in 2020, this is probably what the Blue Jays would have looked like in 2020. Much like where the Orioles are right now. So if the trajectory stays the same in a year or two, look out for the Orioles. But I digress. They have to capitalize on these games, right? So we have 10 total games against Baltimore, and like you said, those last 3 are in Baltimore. Let's not forget those games are in early October.
Yeah.
And, for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games prior to that, 3 against the Yankees, 3 against the Red Sox, the Blue Jays have the luxury of being in the dome where it could be closed.
Right.
Those last 3 games might be pretty cold in Camden Yards outside. I know October baseball is a thing, but I don't remember seeing that. I mean, given the CBA agreement and whatnot, and the lockout, but pushing back the season into early October to end it, that might not be beneficial to the Blue Jays. It might not be beneficial to Baltimore either, but it's just
to that
you
point,
never
it's
know
better
what
to play those games in Maryland than in New York or Boston because it'll be fucking even colder in those 2 places.
Fair. Right.
So we'll let the Yankees and Red Sox pummel each other in those cold places.
Yeah.
Right.
Great.
And even before those 7 games I referenced, they still have 4 against the Rays before that. So 11 of their last 14 are in a dome.
Actually,
so you got to capitalize on those.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I'm just looking at what you're saying now. Yes, 11 of those last games are at a dome.
That's
but
pretty
they
convenient.
still have that 5-game series against the Rays in the middle of September. I know it's in Toronto, and they tend to fare a little bit better against them, but it's going to be close down to the wire, honestly. The fact that this was supposed to be the time where you start to pull away a little bit and start to solidify and cement it to cruise, I don't think they'll be in cruise mode. But Craig, I know we're looking at this obviously from a Blue Jays angle, and then you go look at the standings and say, hey, it's one hot streak and they're went back into wild card 1. If you're the Rays or the Mariners are only 2.5 up on Baltimore, so they could easily fall out of it too. And the Rays 3 back, and I don't know how many times Baltimore plays Tampa, but Tampa still has the same kind of problem the Blue Jays have, I would assume, where Baltimore could gain ground on them too and get in ahead of the Rays. So it's anybody's wild card. And don't forget too, I mean, I'm just looking at it now. Minnesota and Cleveland, one of them are going to take the division and one of them falls out, but they could fall out into a wild card spot and boot out Toronto or
and
Seattle.
Right now, the Twins have been looking rough.
They have.
So
the Twins have
that's
really
the only saving grace.
Exactly.
But that still might be only a blip.
Where, Craig, is your level of panic considering that? Look, let's be honest. There's still 10 games against the Orioles, they could make up that 2 games in a heartbeat and even start to pull away a little bit. But they can also make that up with the Rays or the Mariners as well, because everybody's still so bunched up. So where's your level of concern at as we are 2 days away from September?
My level of panic is starting to feel like I need to drink more, like John Gibbons is on his Twitter account already. So, but to that point, this is starting to feel already too much like the last season, right before we were talking, before we went on that crazy tear to end the season to get close, where the destiny was in their hands and they actually took it to it and did everything they needed to do. The problem was last year, the teams around them didn't let them do it. Mm-hmm. So the catch on that whole thing is, as a Blue Jays historian and one of the older ones in this group, I remember those late 90s teams as a kid, and this is starting to feel a little bit too much like those seasons where we just missed it. Watching Kansas City make it to the dance, watching Tigers make it to the dance in those years. It's just, like you said, we were talking about, it's freaking maddening, and I really don't know what to say about it other than the fact that I'm very concerned that they have a clear window to the playoffs at the moment, and they need to start winning some ball games.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Well, yeah, it's going to be definitely stressful, especially when they get into that series against the Orioles starting on Labor Day Monday. 2 games.
How many beers?
A lot, for sure. Luckily, I'm taking a sober September, but that might have to be broken early, depending on how stressful yeah. But yeah, no, it's going to be crazy. But let's take a step back. Obviously, this team, we know that they can hit and whatnot, and we know they can pitch a little bit. The bullpen has actually gotten much better over the last little while. It really has. Trevor Richards is a guy, yes, who started to turn it around, and others in the bullpen. But outside of Kevin Gausman and Alek Manoah, who are for sure your game 1 and 2 starters, I know we've touched on this a little bit. I want to specifically focus on a debate somebody was asking and having on Twitter the other day. Somebody said, do you start Ross Stripling in a 3rd game? And on performance alone this season, the answer is absolutely yes. But will they, considering they just gave Barrios a 7-year contract extension? And that definitely played into his opening day start as well, for giving him that to parade him out there. Stripling has been great, but where I'm going with this is, considering how valuable he's been to the Blue Jays this year, and really the unsung hero after Hyun-Jin Ryu went down. Craig, he's a free agent at the end of the year. And I don't want to look into offseason things quite yet, but it's worthy having this conversation because we're getting close to the end of the season, and it might not end up being further than October the 6th or whatever that Wednesday is against Baltimore. Looking ahead, do you give Ross Stripling a qualifying offer, knowing that it's 1 year, probably around $18-19 million for a guy who's really broken out this season, to keep him around for another year? Because to me, if you give him a QO, he's that kind of guy who would suffer, kind of like Colby Rasmus did a couple of years ago when he got it in 2015 from the Astros.
You have to take it.
You have to take it because it's going to hinder you. Nobody's going to want to give you a contract to give up a draft pick, in my mind at least. So knowing that, and knowing that they probably do want to keep Ross Stripling around because he's been so damn good, do you give him a qualifying offer?
I think right now, with the fact that the Blue Jays do have that minor league depth being so far down the pipe, they have to sign somebody this offseason if they want to continue to do well. We know we're not going to get Ryu back anytime soon. You can't hope and pray that he's going to, be magic coming right off that too. So you're relying on the same guys that we more or less have right now. I don't think they're going to be bringing any of the minor leaguers up that might get a nice extended look in spring training. So who do you plug into that? I would much rather throw a brick of money at Ross Stripling for one more season and hope that you get the Marco Estrada second year.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And you just run through like what he did in 2016, right? So I think that's where I would be hedging my bet right now. And honestly, right now, as far as your other part of that conversation of who starts the 3rd game, unless Barrios literally rips through September, like just full on is dominant, like Nolan Ryan, like level dominant or something like that, which not probably going to happen. I'm putting Stripling in that 3rd game, and I wouldn't even think about it.
Mm-hmm. Adam?
So, but yes, sell or buy.
Yes. Adam, where are you at?
You have no choice, and quite honestly, with the exception of the 2 starting pitchers that we have been relying on for, if not the entire year, the better part of the year, and Manoah and Gosman. I'm not sure that I trust this front office's evaluation of pitching talent because, I mean, you couldn't have predicted Barrios, so I'll give them that. Ryu from the jump, like I understand the optics of it were big because he was the biggest free agent on the market, if not just the pitching market. Um, I understand
But
why
his
the Blue
COVID
Jays
year was
wanted
the
to make that
best,
splash.
right?
Yeah, and it was in a limited season too. Um, I just don't know that I want to go out there and get hamstrung to a long-term deal with the pitcher, and I don't even know the free agent market really at the moment. Um,
It's
unless
not
you're
good this
trading
year.
for a guy like Otani, if that's going to be back on the table and you go all in, you can solidify your starting pitching there. I would still give Stripling the QO just to have the insurance for the same reason why you had him as an insurance policy this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, like if at the very least he'd make an excellent fifth starter.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. And are you starting in game 3? I think I know where your answer
Yeah,
is.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not letting Barrios touch that. No.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And he hasn't earned it. And to that point, Stripling's been insane, especially since he came off at DL. You know, it's just he's been just as good as anybody else, and probably even better than Manoah lately,
Better.
which is saying something.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he hasn't been rough. He's been rough, but he's still doing Manoah things.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, without a doubt. And just to go back to something I said earlier on the Orioles and the Rays, they don't play each other anymore. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
They are done with each other as the season goes along. So you're probably a little bit more comfortable as a Rays fan right now, knowing that you just take care of business and Baltimore can't catch you. So just jumping back at that quickly, but yeah, I think it's hard to ignore that it's becoming a real possibility and probably something that you have to do is give Ross Stripling a qualifying offer, because if you don't, obviously Ryu isn't coming back for the start of next season. If he does, that's a miracle, and even then I wouldn't trust him. Yes, my Ryu rehab has worked. And
he's not coming back, dude.
No, I don't think he is either. And we know the whole Yusei Kikuchi story. So you're down to, in your rotation at that point, you're really down to Manoah, Gosman, Barrios, and Mitch White. And I would prefer to not have Mitch White be my fourth starter, considering that since he's been a Blue Jay, I know he's on a pitch count and he's not really stretched out to begin with, but no more than 4 or 5 innings max. I mean, maybe that changes with an off season and a full spring training, but even then, he hasn't looked overly brilliant, especially last Friday against the Angels. So I think, you give it to Stripling, knowing that there's probably a very good chance he has to take it because he's not going to get the contract offers that he would if it wasn't attached to him. So you have him back, and it just pushes everybody back down the depth chart. If it blows up in their face, it's 1 year, money's gone at the end of the year, and it could work out, Craig, like you said, with Marco Estrada and whatnot. And I mean, on performance alone this season, he's my game 3 starter. I just am not confident that they would make that decision over a guy they gave a 7-year deal to. So that's going to be fascinating to see.
Yeah.
When
looking at the free agent guys, though, if you want to just
go for it.
Sure. Yeah.
It's some rather old people would be the nice way of saying it.
Verlander,
Jake DeGrom would be your alleged highlight, and that's assuming that the Mets actually are dumb enough to let him go. So there's some things there. And
can we pause right there? Hold on, pause right there.
I
don't know that I'd want to give him a long-term deal. Like I feel like the cracks are just starting to show. Because I remember, if you remember, I remember in the beginning of the year, didn't he start a little later? Wasn't he hurt?
Yep.
Yeah.
He was out for a while.
And then was he out all of last year or?
No,
he was
it was a good chunk though.
Yeah,
okay, so
quite a bit late the last couple of years, yes.
He's Syndergaard, in my opinion, all over again, who is also a free agent.
I'd rather give him like a 1 or 2 year, like a one and an option. Honestly, I would rather than throw a brick of money at DeGrom, personally.
So the alleged highest market value guys would be Verlander, DeGrom. Adam Wainwright is technically a free agent at the age of 41, who is putting together another great season. But do you trust it? No. That's because he has Yandy again. So Clayton Kershaw, noticing a trend here, old.
Yeah.
Rodon is one of the youngest guys on this list. Then you get into Chris Bassett, Chapman, Nathan Eovaldi, Syndergaard, Andrew Heaney. So it's starting to drop off, So
Yeah.
Jameson Taillon and then Zach Greinke are your rounding out your high value guys. And then you get into literally guys like David Price, Charlie Morton, people that barely have teams.
Trade.
Yeah. QO Stripling, after hearing that list of names.
And trade.
Yes,
And trade.
See, I'm glad
100%.
I put that out there because now there's your nail in the coffin,
You
right?
have
Get
to.
me raw stripping. Need more chicken strip in that grill.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Yeah, I just wanted to float that by you guys because that's been a topic of discussion lately, especially considering what he took a perfect game into the 7th inning a couple weeks ago against the Orioles and then pitched
stayed
another
back.
gem against the Red Sox last week, Tuesday. Not as hot against the Angels, but that was the first time in feels like forever that Ross Stripling had a start that was underwhelming, so you can forget about that. His next one will be against Pittsburgh on Saturday afternoon, or I guess early evening, 6:30 first pitch. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see as we move forward. The other pitcher I want to talk about a little bit because he was also part of this discussion in a way is Jose Barrios. And I didn't realize how good his July actually was when you go look through and look at his game log. It was actually the Jose Barrios that looked like the Blue Jays signed. 36 innings pitched, 42 strikeouts. Still not as high of a strikeout rate as you would normally expect with him, but an even 3 ERA. And then as soon as we flip the page to August, he had that dud against the Twins where he gave up 5 runs in 3 2/3. Then he gives up 8 in 4 innings against the Cleveland Guardians. But then the last few starts, the Thursday that led off that Yankees series where they almost swept them, 6 2/3, 2 earned runs and 9 strikeouts. And then last Wednesday against the Red Sox, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 6 strikeouts. And then finally yesterday, which was definitely rougher, 5 2/3, 10 hits, 4 earned runs, 4 strikeouts. It's interesting. Wilner called out when Jose Barrios doesn't have a strikeout in the first inning, his ERA is, I think, in the 10s. Whereas if he has a strikeout in the first inning, he usually goes on and has one of his dominant games. So
how much is that first game for the opening day, though? Is that stat?
I know. Probably quite a bit. I wouldn't be surprised.
That's metrics for you.
Yeah. Craig, I know that he had those duds at the beginning of August, and he came off a very good July, but he continues to be Jekyll and Hyde, where he could dominate and have 13 strikeouts like he's done twice this season, or he can absolutely go out and have some duds. But he made a couple mechanical adjustments in his delivery a couple weeks ago. I think Chris Black, who's a producer for Sportsnet, broke that down, and Joe Siddle commented on it, and they talked about it on Blue Jay Central. And since the adjustments, it looks like it's helping a little bit, maybe not so much last night. But how many more starts are you giving Jose Barrios for the rest of the season until you're comfortable with him, or finally say maybe he's finally figured it out? We can trust him a little bit more than we have.
To me, right now, he's become he needs to be basically Greg Maddux over the next month for me to trust him in the playoffs. Because the other problem is his stuff will carry in the bullpen. Or okay, somebody does come out. Let's say you do start that third game and Strip lays up a chicken egg. You got Barrios to come out and throw 4 strong innings, hopefully, and just mash through that and keep them in the ball game. That is not a bad problem to have. Having 4 legit guys that should, like I said, should do pretty well in that situation. I just don't think they can trust him in that going into that playoffs. But obviously, he's going to get a start every 5th day right now, just because they have nobody else. And I think that's the only way to get him right. He's one of those guys that has to be out there doing it. He says he has good bullpens and stuff like that all the time. So he needs to figure out whatever is mentally driving his game off. I really am still shocked if it's something mechanical that all these people have not found over the season. So unless he's actually out on the mound doing it and working through it, I honestly thought that start he had against the Red Sox was rather telling of what the rest of his season was going to look like. He's going to be doing well, but it's not going to be anything crazy. But he's going to keep you in a damn ball game. And he's going to. I honestly think that Jose Barrios' best case scenario for his career right now is to really hit it hard this offseason and prove everybody wrong.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Adam,
I think he can too.
To answer your question directly, like how many starts is it gonna take until we feel comfortable? I mean, we don't have a choice. We don't have the luxury of waiting it out and for comfort. We have to just plug them out there, much to what Craig said. Um, I don't know that for the remainder of the season I'm going to be comfortable. I'm going to white knuckle my chair every single start that he has going, especially with how tight the playoff race is, as we've been talking about, or rather the wild card race.
Yeah.
I just I think it's more in between the years with Barrios because it just I don't think ability is this much of a you don't see this sharp of a decline
that quickly.
Yeah, and I brought this up for the past like few episodes. You know, how much confidence are we going to continue to lend to Walker? Like we talk about how he fixes everyone. All right, well, this is a guy that ought not to need fixing, and apparently he does. So like,
did he break it?
Yeah, I don't know that it's mechanical. I think honestly, it might be something mental because the fundamentals and the fluidity of the motion and the windup, it looks fine. I haven't noticed anything weird about him tipping pitches and his release point. I haven't seen anything to indicate that it would be something to that nature. I think it's more of something in between the years. I don't know if it's the pressure of the contract. I don't know if it's the pressure of the expectations from the team. If anything, I'd hope that would motivate him. But
and he's been always one of those bulldog kind of guys. He's been in playoff races with the Twins before, so I don't think that part of the pressure part is anything different than what he's used to.
He was in one last year for us.
Yeah.
It's not like it was something out of the blue. So I don't know. It to me, it's got to be something mental. Whether maybe he's hurt and we don't know it. Maybe he's battling something. We don't know it. But
that's true. That's even more reasons to do the third game thing like we were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, like you have no choice but to plug him out there. But I don't know. I would hope that he was just average. Like keep trucking out those red jerseys, I guess. If that's what's gonna do it, then fine, do that.
Yeah, do whatever's gonna help.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. Yeah, no, that covers the pitching side of things, really. I mean, they're going to have to trust him. For me, if he puts together kind of like the last three starts, and I am going to include last night because 4 runs over what? He went 5 2/3, I think it was. Keeps you in a game. It's just shy of a quality start and whatnot, even though those stats are kind of useless. But still, he kept them in the game for the most part, and they did end up coming back to win. So I would give him another 3-4 starts before I can finally maybe breathe a little bit more and not expect a dud upcoming. But it's still hard to trust that at the end of the day because we've seen it far too often this season where we've been proven wrong and he hasn't actually rounded the track. So
well, how many does he have left? So he's got it's every 5th day. So 1, 2, 3, 4. He's pitching the last game against the Pirates. 1, 2, 3, 4. First game against the Rangers. So that's 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Game against the Rays, 1, 2, 3, 4. Game against the Orioles, 1, 2, 3, 4. Game against the Rays again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Game against the Red Sox, 1, 2, 3, 4. Last game of the season. Fuck me.
Now that might not be a bad deal though, because it hopefully clinched by then.
Well, that's yeah, or it could be like last year.
Shut up! Don't jinx it.
I know.
I already said that once. Now we're all agreeing with me.
That's what Schulman and Buck Martinez were saying over the weekend and even last night. It's like, yeah, that last series, you have to have the Orioles put away. They cannot have any glimmer of hope going into there unless they've already surpassed another team and they're just trying to stay ahead of like the Mariners or somebody like that. Then fine, but yeah,
that would make me more comfortable.
Us.
If they were just not behind us, nipping at the heels, just let them go by.
Exactly. Because look, I don't think a second AL Central team gets in. It's going to be one of the division winners and not. So really, in my mind, unless the White Sox get really hot and the Red Sox are done for sure. But unless the White Sox get really hot, there's nobody else. It's just Baltimore really at this point that we got to worry about. And hopefully they fucking finally slow down. But I don't think that's going to happen. Anyways,
I digress.
Yes, let's go to the offensive side of things. And again, just me getting caught up from the last little while. Looking at the second half of the season and how much the batting order has kind of changed since John Schneider has taken over as manager. Bo Bichette has been okay the last little while, not great. He still hasn't had one of those patented Bo Bichette hot streaks that we saw last year. I mean,
Did we just lose Brendan?
Yeah, Brennan just froze out a little bit.
oh, did I?
There you go. You're good.
Okay, repeat, sir.
Bo Bichette finally got dropped from batting second and whatnot. And even then, still batting in the cleanup spot from time to time, even though he only has 3 home runs and 16 RBI since the All-Star break. Alejandro Kirk has less than a 100 weighted runs created plus at 94. So he has not had the exact same kind of season that he did in the first half that made him an All-Star. So moving forward, knowing that your horses in the second half, obviously Springer's been incredible since coming off the injured reserve. Vlad has just, quietly been consistent this entire year and been really, really good. Teoscar has had his moments, but Matt Chapman has by far and away been their best offensive player all around since the All-Star break. 9 home runs, 19 RBI, hitting 261, a 367 OBP, and a weighted runs created plus of 160, which is second to Springer, who's at 170. So considering Chapman has been batting 7th and no higher really than 6, and knowing how much Alejandro Kirk and Bo Bichette really have not done a whole lot since the All-Star break, Adam, are you messing with what's made Matt Chapman successful hitting lower in the order, or are you moving him higher to drive in some of these runs when Vlad and Springer are consistently getting on base?
Nope, leaving him be. Not messing with it at all. We waited this long to get this sort of production from Chapman. I'm not touching it. If anything, I might move Bichette. If it were up to me, he wouldn't be at the 4 spot. Wasn't there a game last week that he was all the way down to the 7 or the 8 spot?
Yeah,
he was low. Maybe
that
he's
looked pretty fine by me.
Yeah,
I think that's where he needs to be.
Agreed.
Take the stress off him.
Yeah, if anything, I would have Teoscar switch with them. So right now, Teoscar's hitting 6, Bo's hitting 4th. I would flip them. And leaving Chapman where
batting anywhere but 4th, personally.
Yeah, I
He hits the best there.
Bichette where he is, and that you want that power. You're already sort of advertising it 1 and 2. Gurriel hasn't really hit for power this year, but he's been at least making contact.
But he's also getting a lot of doubles and stuff. So the fact that he can drive in those guys is the reason he's in the 3rd spot.
Yeah.
As far as our best contact guy outside of Vlad, he has been that guy.
At
least definitely elite.
Yeah, no, I am fine with Gurriel at the 3 and just having Teoscar at the 4 and then Chapman at the 5. That's a dangerous 1 through 5. I would leave it exactly the way it is, and I'm cool with it. And I know this wasn't necessarily your point, Brendan, but it makes me wonder at what point are we going to start questioning whether or not Bo Bichette is worthy of a massive extension as like these players are.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. And by the way, the Cubs just hit a home run.
And the only guy that can hit. Yeah. Guy's a freaking beast.
Yeah, it was a beautiful swing too. But yeah, I just this year has been a little bit more revealing to me when it comes to Bichette than previous years. And not that I think that he's not worth an extension at all. He certainly is. But if it comes at the cost of, your number one priority, if you're the Blue Jays in terms of extensions, your number one priority is Vlad and whatever he wants.
100%. Craig,
whatever he wants, keyword.
Yeah,
exactly. Craig, where are you at with the lineup construction currently? Are you more in favor of moving Chapman up the order, considering how much he's driven in runs in the 7th spot?
Personally, I love the fact that he's in the 5th spot tonight. I think that this lineup constructed properly probably has Matt Chapman in that 5th spot. Just that threat of extra pop after your cleanup hitter is something enticing. And as much as I love Bo Bichette, to me, he's either in your top 2 or you just shove him anywhere below your 6th guy.
Yeah.
And it's because of the on-base thing. That's literally it. It's not I'm saying he can't make bat ball. He can't hit for power. No, he does all those things. The problem is he strikes out too much for me to just shove him into the 4th spot. Where Teoscar Hernandez, don't get me wrong, strikes out a lot too. But he drives in runs at a ridiculous clip. Teoscar Hernandez, to me, is the modern-day Joe Carter. He just does his job quietly. hits home runs. He's going to give you somewhere in the ballpark 30 every season, and he's going to be close to 100 RBIs. He's done that consistently as a Blue Jay, and that says freaking cleanup hitter all day long. So, and if you're going to put somebody like Lourdes in front of him, along with obviously Vlad and Springer at this point, those are guys that are going to get on base. You need somebody that is a seasoned RBI guy in that fourth spot to me. So you put him there, and then Chapman is there just to mop up any little remnants on that plate that you need to, just clean up. So
for sure.
And then to that point, then you just restart the lineup, kind of like in that sixth spot. Bichette's your reset. Have somebody good to go with. If there is anybody happen to be left in line there on the bases, and then you have Espinal, Jansen, or Kirk, and so on down the lineup, and just make it easy. I really think that's a nice little piece right there in the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, no, I agree. I absolutely agree. It's I think what you said, Craig, there, having him fifth, considering how well he's hit in the second half of the season, and really, honestly, since the calendar flipped from May, you can even go back to the beginning of June. Matt Chapman's been pretty damn incredible offensively, and continues to be a stud defensively as well.
RBIs.
Yeah,
that's all I care about.
Yeah.
Right now, when this team needs to score runs to keep this pitching in the ball game, I don't care how the runs come in. I need somebody to be stacking those RBIs up. And if you put Teoscar, him, and company right in line after those other guys, you're going to get more runs in.
Yeah, absolutely. I would probably right now, when they're healthy, and it's a normal, regular lineup in there, Springer obviously lead off, Vlad 2, as he's been really since Schneider's taken over. And then I would probably go Lourdes in 3, Teoscar 4, Chapman 5, maybe Bo 6. I'd move Alejandro Kirk down to Chapman's spot to get his bat heated up a little bit again. And then you round it out however you see fit with the rest of the guys who are in there, whether it's Biggio or Espinal or Tapia or Jackie Bradley Jr. Or Whit Merrifield, who's also been a disappointment since being traded for. But regardless,
we saw that coming, though.
We did kind of see that coming. Unfortunately, he's on the wrong side of his career, not the quiet superstar that he was with the Royals a couple years ago.
Right guy, though, for the bench spot.
I agree. I do agree. I don't mind him in the role he's been playing since guys have come back from the injured list. No doubt about that.
Did you guys know that Bo Bichette sneakily has 32 doubles?
Yeah, I would say that is a good way to put it. Sneakily has 32 doubles because it doesn't feel that way. It's
probably about half his hits, right?
Yeah, actually. Two quick hit topics before we get into picks to click and record predictions for the next little while. The Blue Jays claim Bradley Zimmer back off of waivers. They cannot get rid of that guy. He will be back. It was actually kind of a nice way to bring him on the roster as the extra guy because you have up to 72 hours for a player to report. And when they claimed him, the 72 hours is when the rosters expand on September the 1st. Craig, any issues with bringing Bradley Zimmer back as that bonus bench spot when the rosters expand a little bit?
Seeing I know that the other spot is going to be a pitcher that they bring up. They're just going to want that extra arm, I think, out there to keep everybody healthy for this last part of the September. My gripe is that I jealously wanted to see if Moreno's bat would help carry this team. So
after the playoff run, it will.
Yeah, but to that point, I was like I said, when rosters expanded, I wanted to see him just come up, and he's been destroying the ball for the Buffalo Bisons, and I would rather ride a hot streak than the bat of Bradley Zimmer, especially when I already have the equivalent batting wise of Jackie Bradley Jr. in that lineup.
Yeah, and that goes back to the debate we had when they picked up JBJ. It's like, why get rid of Zimmer in his spot when they bat the same and he's faster? But anyways.
So to that point, that would be my argument. I like the move to get somebody like Bradley Zimmer, but not when you have a bat like Gabriel Moreno looking for a way to possibly help this team and even a DH spot. I really don't care. He's hitting hard right now. Bring him up, give him a shot.
Yeah, and actually continue with this one because that's going to be my second question. Who is that pitcher that you're calling up on September the 1st?
Insert name here.
Yeah, I know.
It's probably going to be somebody like Casey Lawrence would be my guess, just because it's somebody that can eat up innings when they do have those crummy starts. So,
yeah,
it's not like they're going to bring up the prospects. I really doubt they'll do something like that, even though the Tiedemann thing has been quite interesting with what he's been doing in Double-A, but they're not going to waste putting him on the 40-man roster when they could use him next year.
Yeah, exactly. Adam, same two questions to you. Your thoughts on Bradley Zimmer being back, and who is the pitcher you're calling up on September 1st?
Oh, geez. I don't
Rough
really
spot.
care about. Yeah, I don't really care about Zimmer. It's fine. I just think it's a familiarity thing, and just to have that depth piece. It's unexciting, but I do think that's going to come. I don't think Marino is going to be part of the roster expansion.
I don't think it is either. I was just saying I'd like to see it.
Yeah, it's hard if you're carrying 3 catchers into the playoffs, or rather, I mean, I don't even think he'd make the playoff roster, but into the tail
I don't
end
think he
of
would either.
September.
But it could help now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, because I think his bat could, but I just think they'd rather go with the familiarity factor and the consistency. And Bradley Zimmer, unfortunately or fortunately, however we want to look at that, offers that consistency, sort of, just in terms of roster construction. Lawrence isn't a bad idea. It's probably the best of what you got coming up. So I don't know that I'm not seeing anything that's really wowing me. So yeah, fine, Lawrence.
What about Julian Merriweather?
I don't know that I trust it.
But he could throw some gas, and you'd see what you get for a playoff run.
That's that violent
what I was
cycle
thinking
we
of in my
always
head.
do as Jays fans. Watch, he'll come back, have an incredible couple outings, then he'll get hurt again.
Yeah.
Or just be this way and bring up Yoshi Sugo, and he's been mashing since they signed him.
Yeah.
Fun shit.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not
There's
too
somebody else I
exciting.
was thinking.
Thinking about who will be called up right now. I mean, I think it might be Julian Merriweather, but then it's a question of who gets DFA'd off the roster.
Right.
I mean,
Oh, that's
at this
right.
point, it's probably Zach Collins going through it. I mean, that makes the most sense, especially if there are plans to call up Moreno at some point when the Bison's playoff run is done, or Vinny Capra. Those are the only two names looking at the 40 men right now that you could probably DFA to get Merriweather installed back on the 40 men from the 60 game injured list. And it's not happening for Nate Pearson. So if that name is out there for anybody,
Who?
it's not going to happen. So don't even bother. And just to quickly touch on it, I like the fact that Zimmer gives them the speed element again, because they still don't have that with JBJ, even though he's fast, decently fast. He's not the fastest player. So I do like it for a potential playoff run should they get in there, because I think Zimmer's speed alone could get him a roster spot on the roster. So yeah.
AC Lawrence's ERA is still 2.81 in the minor leagues through 100 innings.
It's
amazing.
Had a really good year for the Bisons. He really has.
So outside of his name, I don't see a ton of guys here that you would do. It's not like you're bringing Joe Biagini back up, even though he's having a decent minor league season.
No, thank you. No, thanks.
I said decent. I didn't say good.
Yeah. Been there, done that.
Exactly.
Any other topics before we wrap it up?
Mariners are up, Rays are up, and as last time I looked, the Orioles were losing.
Yes. Okay. As long as Baltimore keeps on losing, then we could be happy. But we also gotta win the ball game.
Yeah. I don't think we on random other Blue Jays talks, I don't think we've had the group together since they've actually discussed about the new renovations to the Rogers Center. You guys have seen it all at this point. It's pretty exciting, I thought, when I saw all of it. And I don't think we've had that whole, like I said, the whole gang together since we talked about that. Now we got the band back together.
Sure. I mean, I think, Brendan, you can speak to this more than any of us, because you're, well, besides Chris, but you're in the vicinity. Yeah. I think it's cool. They obviously didn't have the real estate to put a new stadium elsewhere. They obviously weren't going to put real grass into that stadium. So the best you can do is to make this a better viewing experience for people. But you bet your ass those prices are going to go up in terms of ticket prices. So
there's fewer seats.
Pinch your pennies. Yeah.
Like 5,000 less seats too, right?
Well,
no, because it was like 47 or something.
I think it's pretty cool. The feature that gets me the most excited is the elevated bullpens and the fact you could sit right beside the reliever, kind of like a Fenway. So I'm down with that. And then with the success of the flight deck, since they renovated that from the old Windows restaurant, it's going to be cool seeing essentially two other flight decks in the 500 level outfield. So
Well, it's every
Yeah.
level, right? There's one on in that it. Right, it's 500,
Yeah,
200.
in right field, there's kind of another patio area. And the one spot that it looked like on one of the renderings, there's kind of like a little lounge area underneath, like in the right field corner and underneath some of the seats. So
Some of the stuff that I
yeah.
saw what they added, that where you're going with that, it seemed a lot like how you've been there, Brendan, how Milwaukee had those 2 pubs and whatnot in right and left field.
Yes.
It felt like that to me when I saw the pictures.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. It's probably about as best as you can do for not building a brand new stadium. It just makes me excited for what they're going to do for the next phase, which I know they're going to be touching the infield, the 100 level infield, and really redoing that. So it'll be fascinating to see what they do with there too. Yeah.
One thing I thought was really stupid interesting that they were talking about during the advertisement for that the other night. Real foul poles, not the more of this cloth crap that we've had hanging from the rafters for a million years.
Yeah.
They brought that up during the who hit the home run last night? They hit off the pole. Somebody did, and it, like you just saw it go into the bag and down the netting, and they're like, "Was it did it?"
Yeah.
I don't know. So it took them like 3 hours to review it, and then we're like, "Oh yeah, finally home run." So
exactly.
No more of that nonsense. You hear a nice gong.
Gong.
Yeah, no more big loud noise. All right, cool.
So,
Let's
cool stuff.
Let's go on to picks to click and record predictions. One more against the Cubs tomorrow night. Mitch White is pitching against TBD. So hopefully they can beat TBD. And then 3 against the Pirates, and we'll also predict the doubleheader against Baltimore. For the Pirates series, Manoah Friday, Ross Stripling Saturday, and Jose Barrios on Sunday, which means Kevin Gausman will get one of the games in the doubleheader, and who knows for the second one. So record prediction, Adam and Craig, where are we at with picks to click? Because I know it's been a very inconsistent gathering the last month.
We didn't do one last week.
Crown a winner from the season before, and we just start doing it for fun. It says score with who was going in and out. So
then let's reset it. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll reset it. Okay.
To that point, keep the score. Keep the score.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, let's just go from.
Just so you're seeing, this was the last time we had the whole team together. Was like basically like Brendan had said at the top of the show, was about a month ago. If you guys curious who you picked like 3 weeks ago?
Yeah, just for shits and giggles, sure.
Yeah.
I had Alejandro Kirk. That's been working really well. Chris had Teoscar. Adam, you were really ballsy right out of the gate from the trade deadline. Whit Merrifield. And Brennan, you might actually win this technically as far as things go, because out of those guys that we just laid out, Jose Barrios has actually had a few starts that weren't too bad. So it is what it is, but clearly we got that really right.
Yeah. So it's a wash. And we'll just pick up where the scoreboard is. Adam, you go first. 1 against the Cubs, 3 against the Pirates in Pittsburgh, and then that doubleheader against the Orioles on Labor Day.
You're giving me first choice, so I'm about to ruin it for you.
I'll
go Chapman.
That's all right.
Pick Mr. Corsair.
Yeah.
Although he did just look a little pissed when he struck out a minute ago.
It's because I hadn't picked him yet.
Yeah. And what is your record for those games?
So we're going up until what, next Tuesday? So after the doubleheader.
Yeah. The 6 games.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So we got 6.
There is one off day in the doubleheader, so you get. Right.
I think they're gonna lose one of these against the Cubs, and I think they'll lose 1 to the Pirates and 1 to the Orioles. So 3-3.
Yep. Craig, you up next. Your picks to click and your record.
Picks to click. I'm just going to be this guy. As I actually noticed and flipping through these sheets, I haven't picked them all year, so I'm going to hope that I'm the one that finally frees the beast here. I'm going to call Bobichette.
Yeah, good.
Just because more or less this hair is going to go away when I get my new, gig here in a little bit, so I got to look like a professional person.
Yeah,
so before I shave all my Bo flow off, I got to root for Bo.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah. And I'm going to say 4-2. I think I think the losses are going to be the Orioles. No, it's only 1 game against the Orioles before the next show, right? So
no, 2 doubleheader.
No, it's 2. I wouldn't be shocked if we lose both those.
Oh, okay.
So that So that
That's
has
me
you...
taking it to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Okay, all right, I do like that.
Yeah, in the games I should is what I'm at.
Yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go Springer just because he's been like a cheat code since coming off the injured list. And I want to go 4-2, but just the way the series are breaking down, I can't ignore what you said, Adam. I mean, I hope they're only down 1-0. I hope the offense can scrape 2 runs and maybe they win 2-1. But I have a feeling maybe they lose tomorrow night with Mitch White on the mound. Take 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh. And then 1 of the 2 against the Orioles in the doubleheader. So I'm going 3-3 as well.
3-3. Okay, well, there you go. And who do we want to write in for Mr. Key?
Give him Teoscar.
Yeah, that's fair.
Carryovers all
friendly. Yeah. And
okay.
let's just put him at 4-2 as well, because sometimes he's ballsy, sometimes he's not.
My guess is he would have said 2-4 lately, but
actually, I was kind of thinking that too. Yeah,
it's only a tiebreaker. I'm just gonna be that guy to put 2 and 4 down.
Yeah, go for it. Well,
it doesn't mean he actually legit thinks that. I'm just saying it's the tiebreaker for our cheats.
It's good to clarify that. Adam, Craig, it's been a pleasure being back with you guys. Obviously, most Tuesdays, I know we had talked in the group chat about potentially moving things around for September with the playoff race and using off days to our advantage. More on that later. Craig, you can announce it on the Twitter feed, depending on what we decide as a collective here. Check us out on all your podcasts, Spotify. That's the only one that can come to the top of my head. Apple Podcasts, wherever else you listen to your podcast.
You need more practice. Get your reps
exactly.
in.
I haven't done it for a while, so I've forgotten how I normally end this thing. But I do know how we usually end, is thanking Stadium Scene as well for all the support in Jay's Journal. And Adam, Craig, let's end this how we normally do, with 2 claps and a Ric Flair. Ready?
Woo! Let's go, Blue Jays.